Welcome to the clinical cookout. Cookout.
Hey y'all, Auntie Ashley, the Clinical Cookout here, and it is Friendly Neighborhood Therapist Friday over at TCC. And this week's theme was HERStory. We will not be silent. All about women's equality and women's equal rights. Anyway, let's talk about what this is all about, what Women's Equality Day is about, why it came to be, and what the Equal Rights Amendment is all about. And I also want to share with y'all some pivotal Black women in the struggle for equal rights. Let's get into it. Saturday, August 26th was officially Women's Equality Day. Women's Equality Day is celebrated in the United States on August 26th to commemorate the 1920 adoption of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which prohibits the states and the federal government from denying the right to vote to citizens of the United States on the basis of sex. So that happened in 1920. But don't think that that means that women just all of a sudden started voting in droves in 1920. Oh, they tried, but of course, they put all sorts of barriers up, and there were even more barriers if you were a Black woman trying to vote in 1920. And if we fast forward right now to 2023, 103 years later, we still having issues voting, y'all. They are literally dealing with voter suppression and all sorts of stuff in certain places. Florida, Texas, Georgia. But anyway, this is not a fight that has actually been won. Even though we have the right to vote, and even though in 1965 it became even more solidified, doesn't matter. We are still out here struggling to actually get our votes in. 3 years after the ratification of the 19th Amendment, the Equal Rights Amendment, or ERA, was initially proposed in Congress in 1923 in an effort to secure full equality for women. It sought to end the legal distinctions between men and women in the terms of divorce, property, employment, and other matters. It failed to achieve ratification, though. And do you know what? To this day, that has not been ratified. So when we say that women still don't have equal rights, this is why. Nothing has actually been put on the books to say that we get them. Now, with the history of the ERA, this is the thing. All women were never on board with women getting equal rights, which poses as a problem because now we cannot be a united front. Black women have always wanted equal rights, at least most Black women. The issues there with the Equal Rights Amendment that a lot of women who don't agree with it kind of brought up was, but we are not the same as men. We want special protections. We want to not work long hours or work overnight or all these different things. We want to be protected when it comes to receiving alimony in a divorce. All of that is well and good. However, if we don't have equal rights, then we also then cannot get mad when, let's say, we do the exact same job as a man, but get paid less than a man. And also, more than anything, equal rights is more about choice. Women want to have the choice. Okay? So a lot of our choices are being taken away. If you take the overturning of Roe v. Wade, that is a choice to our bodily autonomy. No one should get to dictate what we decide to do with our own body, because I'm pretty sure that if the government tried to say, okay, well, every man who does not take care of his children has to get a vasectomy so that he cannot produce more children, y'all would have a problem with that, right? Because it's your body, and you don't want nobody telling you what you can and can't do with your body. Well, same for women. And I don't think y'all realize the extent of this. Realize that there was a time in history where a woman could not go into a bank and get a loan without the signature of her husband. Realize that women have always been seen as property in this country. We are the property of our fathers, and then when we get married, they give us away to our husband. Now, this is not to say that a lot of us women don't want to be taken care of. That's not what that means. You taking care of me and me having equal rights are two separate arguments. Even something like, I have children already. I would like to not have any more children, so I want to get my tubes tied. Do you know when Auntie Ashley went to go get her tubes tied after her fourth child, the hospital I was at in Georgia stated that I needed my husband's permission. No one would ever dare to tell a man what he can and cannot do with his body and say that he needs his wife's permission. Lastly, I want to just give y'all a few lesser known Black women who have really shaped Our world, our society have shaped history and specifically have shaped America. This is just to show y'all how women be out here, especially black women. And this is why we often say listen to black women, because if you think about it, if black women could just be seen as equal, then no other woman would have a problem. Because whether people want to admit it or not, the hierarchy has always been white men, black men, white women, black women, or white men, white women, black men, black women. But we are always somehow at the bottom of that hierarchy. But let's get into these lesser known, influential black history makers and world shapers. Elizabeth Freeman. Her birth is unknown, but she died in 1829. She was also known as Mum Bet, and she was a nurse and midwife who successfully sued Massachusetts for her freedom in 1781, becoming the first African-American enslaved woman to win a freedom suit in the state. Her suit helped lead to the permanent abolition of slavery in the state of Massachusetts. Ona Judge, 1773 to 1848. So Ona was a mixed woman born into an enslaved family on Mount Vernon and brought to Philadelphia to serve at President Washington's house. Yes, George Washington. And on May 21st, 1796, the 22-year-old Ona successfully escaped her enslavement to President Washington while he and his wife ate dinner. She fled to New Hampshire. Audre Lorde, 1934 to 1992. She made incredible contributions to feminist literature. In her writings, she highlighted her experiences being a black lesbian woman and confronted issues of racism, homophobia, classism, and misogyny, giving voice to other black female writers and activists. Wangari Maathai, 1940 to 2011. She was the first black African woman to receive a Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts in environmental conservation. In the 1970s, she founded the Green Belt Movement, an environmental, non-governmental organization focused on environmental conservation and women's rights. Marsha P. Johnson. So Johnson was the first self-identified drag queen in the U.S. She was one of the first openly gay liberation activists and a key figure in the Stonewall riots of 1969. When asked what the P stood for in her name, she responded, "Pay it no mind," and continued to use that phrase when asked about her gender identity. Ruby Bridges, 1954 to the present. Ruby Bridges is an American activist who helped the civil rights movement in Louisiana. She was the first child to desegregate William Frantz Elementary School, an all-white school in Louisiana, which she was selected to attend based on her displayed intelligence at just 6 years old. So listen, even the babies, little black girls, have shaped history. And Ruby Bridges is still alive and well, so that should tell y'all just how insane it is that we still are dealing with certain issues, because there is a woman still alive who desegregated a school. And of course, Ruby Bridges continues to fight for equal rights to this day. Lastly, Ketanji Brown Jackson, 1970 to present. Now, I know everybody knows her because she is, of course, the first black woman ever appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which happened in April of 2022. The reason I wanted to add her, though, is because think about that. 2022, the first black woman got elected to the Supreme Court. This just goes to show that with all the contributions and all the accomplishments and all the successes of women and black women in particular, how is it that we are still trying to fight for equality and equal rights? It does not make sense. We are not saying that we are the same as a man. We know that there are key differences between men and women. But when it comes to intelligence, leadership, all those things, where's the difference? This is why it's so important for women to have equal rights. Because as the common saying goes, we should measure the progress of a community by the degree which women have achieved. The heartbeat and the temperature of a society is based on the treatment of women. That's it and that's all. And black women in particular, we just a vibe, okay? That's it and that's all. We've been doing this. And we will continue, because at the end of the day, the world's a better place when women are equal. Y'all have a black and beautiful day. And remember to catch us next week with our new theme over at the Clinical Cookout. I'll holler at y'all later.